Shalom, shalom. First of all, I'd like to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Yahweh is the world called God. Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus Christ. Double honors to my brothers who are in Israel gathering together, Cincinnati. And double honors to all the elders, apostles, teachers, and diligent brothers who came before me, establishing this work in Mashiach Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus Christ. I'm Brother Aaron from Israel Gathering Together, Ghana. And today we're going to do a class that's called Remembering the Days of Old. Remembering the Days of Old. So for you brothers here in Ghana, go ahead and get your pencils, paper, go ahead and get that out, write these precepts down. I'm going to kind of go through the class pretty quickly today due to time constraints. So I want to try to get this in before, I have something, another thing that I need to do. So today's class, as I said, is called Remembering the Days of Old. And the reason we must remember the days of old is simply because we have forgotten our way. But as we look into the Bible, right, it tells us who we are as a people, what we need to do as a people, and how and where we should be going as a people. Right now, we're lost. We're into all different ideologies, doctrines, different religions, different mindsets. I mean, we're into everything except for God's commandments. So let's get right into it. Open your book up to Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 7. And also, we'll be coming out of the Apocrypha for those of you who are new to the channel. These are 14 books that were removed by the so-called Caucasian man in the late 1700s to deceive our people. This is the actual Greek captivity. All right. So Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 7. And it reads, "Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee. Thy elders, and they will tell thee." We're just going to let the precepts flow. Get to Job. Now go to Job chapter 8, verse 8. So it says, "Ask thy fathers, and he shall tell thee." Right? Ask thy elders, and they will show thee. The book of Job, chapter 8, verse 8. "For inquire, I pray thee, of thy former age, and prepare thyself for the search of their fathers." You hear that? "For we are but of yesterday, and know nothing, because our days upon earth are a shadow." And the reason I'm bringing these precepts out, because you call yourself Ghanaian today, right? Which means warrior king. But before you were Ghanaian, the white boy, so-called white boy anyway, called you the Gold Coast, because that's what he was taking up out of here. And then before that, you were the people of Akan, right? So how many times your name going to change? You see that? Let's get Psalms now, chapter 143, verse 5. The book of Psalms, chapter 143, verse 5. And this is King David in the spirit. And it reads, "I remember the days of old. I meditate on all thy works. I muse on the works of thy hand." What are the works? See that? King David said he remembered the days of old, and he meditated on all thy works. Let's see what God's works are. Get Exodus 18:20. The book of Exodus, chapter 18, verse 20. Keep them pen and papers moving, because we moving through the precepts. Then you come back later and analyze the precepts, and you'll get a better understanding. Exodus chapter 18, verse 20. "And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do." What is the work? Ordinances and laws. You see that? That's why King David said he remembered thy works, meaning he remembered the laws, statutes, and commandments which were given unto his people, the Israelites. And King David is from the tribe of Judah. Now we go into the Apocrypha. Go into the book of Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus, chapter 17, and start at verse 10. The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 17, and verse 10. And it reads, "And the elect shall praise his holy name." We know the elect is Israel, according to Psalms 148, verse 14. And it says, "Besides this, he gave them knowledge and the law of life for inheritance." You hear that? The elect is Israel. So what did he give us? he says, verse 11, Sirach chapter 17, verse 11. Besides this, he gave them knowledge and the law of life for inheritance. So what is the heritage of the so-called Negro man, so-called West Indian Haitian man? You people, some of you people here in the west coast of Africa that were scattered. What is your heritage? Your heritage is the laws, statutes, and commandments of God. Not Christianity, not Islam, not any other fake false religion that was given to us while our people were in slavery. All right? So let's read on. Verse 12. He made an everlasting covenant with them. You see that? Not with everybody, with the Israelites. And showed them his judgments. He showed them his judgments. You understand? He showed the Israelites his judgments. Drop down to verse 17. Better get some more clarification. Verse 17. For in the division of the nations of the whole earth, he set a ruler over every people. So you got Chinese, Japanese, so-called Caucasian, East Indian, Arabs. You hear that? Palestinians, Jordanians. You got 18 nations up on the planet. So he set a ruler over every nation. Contrary to what the world say, we all human beings. Yeah, we are human beings. But we're all different nationalities. Check this out. And it says, but Israel is the Lord's portion. The nation of Israel, one of those 18 nations, is the Lord's portion. Go back to Deuteronomy now, chapter 32, verse 8. Deuteronomy, chapter 32, and verse 8. We're going to get better clarification on what was just said about the nations, right? And it reads, when the Most High divided the nations, their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam. You see that? He separated the sons of Adam. He set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. You hear that? Verse 9. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. So the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his inheritance is the nation of Israel. You people of Negroid and Indian descent. You people that were scattered in the transatlantic slave trade, sub-Saharan slave trade, Silk Road slave trade, chattel slavery. Those who fit the curses which we're about to go into, right? So remember the days of old. Now this is how you're going to know, people of Ghana, if you are an Israelite. If your spirit bear witness to what's coming out of this Bible, and this befell on your ancestors, then you are an Israelite. Because we have some Hamites mixed in here with Israelites here in Ghana. So if your spirit bear witness to what I'm reading here, God's true word, then you are an Israelite. You must repent and keep God's law, statutes, and commandments with belief on a Mashiach Yahushua, who the world calls Jesus Christ. So now we're going to get Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1. And I'm not going to read everything. I'm just going to show you. Matter of fact, get Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1. Deuteronomy 1 and 1. And it reads, these be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel. You hear that? All who? All Israel. That didn't say Japan, Europeans. That said Israel, right? On this side of Jordan in the wilderness, in the plain over against the Red Sea, between Paran and Tophel and Laban and Hazeroth and Dizabah. So he spoke to all Israel. That's the context of the chapter. Now let's go to verse 28, chapter 28, verse 1. And it reads, and it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations. We're not equal. God said he was going to set us, if we kept his commandments, he was going to set us above all nations. Now drop down to verse 15. So from verse 2 to 14 is all the blessings that we would receive if we had kept God's commandments. Now listen, now here's verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So how do we know who the Israelites are? because we're going to read some of the curses that God say will come upon his people if they didn't follow his commandments and his laws and his statutes and his ordinances, right? All right, get Deuteronomy 28. We're going to read through here. Let's read verse 46 now. Deuteronomy 28, verse 46. And it says, and they, meaning the curses, shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. How long is forever? Forever. So it said the curses shall be upon us for a sign and a wonder. So people will look outside and say, why are these people always dancing and shaking their ass on Christian videos? We the only people that'll do a video. It could be Christian, it could be Islam. We got our women in the back shaking their buttocks, man. You at a funeral, people dying, you got our women out here shaking asses. It don't make sense. That's a wonder, right? Here's some of the signs, right? Let's get verse 32 now. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 32. And it says, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. And there shall be no might in thy hand. Whose sons and daughters was given away in the transatlantic slave trade? You got it. Some of you people here in Ghana, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Togo, Congo, Benin, Mali, Democratic Republic of Congo, all throughout the West Coast, Central, and some parts of Eastern Africa. Because you are the Israelites. They weren't just giving away any African. It was certain tribes of people over here that they were giving away. So they say your sons and daughters shall be given unto another people. Now, the people that's in Israel today that's calling themselves Israelis, have you ever heard or seen any pictures of their sons and daughters being given away unto black people or Arabs or Chinese? Hell no, because they don't fit the prophecy. Food for thought, because we're going to get into that too. Verse 33, and it says, the fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall thy nations which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. You're being oppressed and crushed today. 98% of Ghana's gold goes to America and Canada. 98% of Ghana's gold goes to America and Canada. The percentages of your cocoa goes to America. Your diamond, your bauxite, all of that's being exported out of the country. It said you will be only oppressed and crushed always. And a nation that you don't know going to eat up all your resources, all your oil, your diamond, your gold, your bauxite. Don't matter. It's happening today. So if you fit these curses, which Ghana fits all what I'm about to read, you are the Israelites. All right, let's get verse 43 now. Deuteronomy 28, verse 43. Check this out. And it says, the stranger that is within thee shall get above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend unto him. Lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. I don't even have to bring this one up. Now, there are some businesses here in Ghana, but if you're talking about 5-star, right? Top notch. You go to any of these malls out here, they're owned by the Chinese, the Arabs, the East Indian. Every time you go somewhere in an establishment, these hotels, they're owned by East Indian, they're owned by other nations. And guess who's working for those nations for, let's say, $1.60 a day? The Ghanaians is working for the other nations in their own land. Telling me you don't fit these curses? Let's get verse 47 now. It says, this is why that's why we're in this condition today. This is a spiritual battle. You look outside, you think it's all physical. No, God is doing this to us because we failed to keep his commandments. Verse 47, because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things, therefore shalt thou serve thy enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in the want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. What nation of people had yokes of iron upon their neck? You can Google it on the internet. You're not going to see the so-called Jewish man that's from Eastern Europe and all parts of Europe. He's just a Caucasian. His biblical nationality is Esau, Edom, which God hates, according to Romans 9:13. You never seen them with yokes of iron upon their neck. So who fitting these curses? Because God said they're going to be up on our seed forever. Let's keep reading. That was 48. 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far. Who came from Europe on the other side of the world to come over into Africa, so-called Africa, to enslave his people, rape, rob, and murder, and send them and scatter them and sell them all over the world? Who did that? Right. It says, as swift as the eagle flyeth. What's the symbol of all the Caucasian nations? A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Nobody understood English. Verse 50. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And all you got to do is turn your TV on or look on the internet, what's going on in America. Really, what's going on in all Western nations. Because when Ukraine started up, right, when the war kicked off in Ukraine, what people were being subjugated and put on the bottom, getting beat up, killed. You couldn't even get on the train. You, Israel, you so-called black people of West Africa. And some of y'all other nations got caught up in that. But those are the curses that befall our people all over the planet. Saudi Arabia, what are they doing? Taking your visa. Once you get there, you think you're going to have a good job, then you become a sex slave. Then they putting our people in slavery and taking their organs out there in Lebanon and Syria when they're trying to cross over to get to Europe. In America, they shooting our brothers and sisters down in the back. They don't even shoot you in the face no more. They ain't chasing you no more in America. You can take off running just because you had a speeding ticket. You run, they're going to shoot you in your back and kill you. And it's all justified because you had a criminal record. You don't get to see the judge in court no more. Your judge is Esau Edom, the so-called white man. And whoever's with him in his system. Even if you're an Israelite working for Esau Edom, God curse you. God damn you. Because you are against your people. All right. Let's go. Let's drop down now to verse 68. Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. One of the famous, and this scripture here should magnify the whole Bible. Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again. What does the word Egypt mean? Go to Exodus 20 and 2. Just to get clarification on Egypt, then we're going to go back. Exodus chapter 20 and verse 2. And it reads, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. So Egypt is synonymous with bondage, captivity, slavery. You understand? Now let's go back and read verse 68. Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt, slavery or bondage, again with ships. We never walk. You can walk to Egypt, to Israel. Today you can't do it because the white boy is so crafty, so-called white boy. He cut out a piece of land and divided Egypt from Israel, so you so-called Africans can't walk into Israel no more. All that was devised and planned in the late 1800s or middle 1800s, whatever. Now it's called the Suez Canal. That was not there during the time of Moses. It was you could walk straight into Egypt, into Israel. Right? So he said he's going to bring you into Egypt again with ships. The transatlantic slave trade, you understand? Transporting brothers from the west coast of Africa, all parts of Africa, to all different parts of the world. All nations, that's what we have. That's what happened. We got scattered in all nations. And it says, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. We have never seen Israel again. And there, meaning wherever you get to, mainly North America, South America, ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you, meaning no man shall redeem you. There's only one redeemer of the nation of Israel. Who was that? That'd be a Mashiach Yahawashah, who the world calls Jesus Christ. So it says once you got there, you're going to be sold to your enemies. Sold to Mr. Jackson. Sold to Mr. Johnson. sold to Mr. Dubois. Whatever your last name is, sold to Mr. Cortez. All these names that we have over in America are slave masters' names. And God say they're your enemies. So it's time for you to separate according to Zephaniah 2:1. Separate and become one mind, one body, one spirit. And come out of all their philosophies and their Greek, all the Greek things that you do, like all the sports, all the alpha, chi alpha, Q dog, all that's Greek, man. All that comes out of the nation of Edom, which is the so-called white man. And you perpetuate that today. Why? Because you have not remembered the days of old. You have not considered the ways of our many generations. We have a heritage that's lost in this earth. We getting our heritage back. That's a part of this video. Let's get Deuteronomy chapter 4 now, verse 27. Deuteronomy 4, verse 27. And it reads, "And the Lord shall scatter you among the nations, and ye shall be left few in number among the heathen, whether the Lord shall lead thee." So, the lead you, Salakia. And hold on, verse 28. "And there ye shall serve gods, the works of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor eat, nor smell." You know why the scriptures always say wood and stone? Because those are the two biggest religions that our people have fell into. Christianity, representing that wood, which is a false religion, and Islam, which is representing that cobblestone that's over there in Mecca. Our second major religion that our people fall into. So he said we're going to be scattered into all nations, right? But hold on. Though the curses is upon us, and though we're going to be scattered into all nations, let's see what's happening right now before our eyes. It's unfolding. The Most High is bringing plagues and disasters on this planet. And those are the signs and wonders that we're supposed to be looking into to know when the Most High is coming back, according to Matthew 24. So let's read. Let's get Jeremiah now, chapter 23, verse 3. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 23, verse 3. And it says, "And I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all countries, whether I have driven them." Now, do you see this Jewish man? Is he in all countries in the world today? Hello? Is the so-called white man scattered in all countries in the world today? Did he have yokes of iron on his neck? Was he placed on cargo slave ships? No. And he says, "Whether I have driven them, and I will bring them again to their fold," meaning back to Israel, "and they shall be fruitfully increased." We're going to drop down to verse 7. Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 7. "Therefore, behold, the days cometh, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt." That's what we do today. That's all we speak of. But hold on. Verse 8. "But the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country." North country. Where is that at? That be North America, right? "And from all the countries, whether I have driven them." That means everywhere the Israelites were taken on them slave ships, the Most High God and his Son, who you call Jesus Christ, they're coming back to redeem us, to get us up out of all these countries, right? And it says, "And they shall dwell in their own land." Because we know the so-called Negro don't have no identity. We can't identify with no land. We don't even know our history. And we get mocked because of that by our own people. But it's okay. Reading these scriptures, we know that we have salvation. Salvation is coming to those who were scattered in slavery, those who keep God's commandments. Let's get Deuteronomy chapter 30 now, verse 1. Go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 1. And it reads, "And it shall come to pass," these are all prophecies, "when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse," we read that in Deuteronomy 28, right? "Which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whether the Lord thy God have driven thee." So we got driven and scattered in slavery in all nations. Only one particular people fit that. You figure it out. It ain't the so-called white man. It ain't the Japanese, the Chinese, the Arab, the East Indian. It's none of them. You know who it is. Verse 2. And shall return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, and thy children with all thy heart and with all thy soul, that then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee. If any of thine be driven unto the outermost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. So no matter what, where we were scattered to in slavery, all the mockery and bywords and proverbs that we're being called today, porch monkeys, spics, niggas, Negroes, Latino, these are all bywords. We're not being called Jacob, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Naphtali. No matter where we were scattered at, God said he gonna get us, he gonna gather us from the othermost parts of the earth, under heaven. Now, does the so-called Jewish man, is he scattered all in the othermost parts of the earth, that Caucasian man? No. All right, let's get Luke 21:20. We're going to get into who the Jewish man really is. Luke 21:20. And remember, this prophecy is by who you call Jesus Christ, and Mashiach Yahushua. These are his words. Luke 21:20. And ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, and know that the desolation thereof is not. This is talking about 65 AD, when Jerusalem was surrounded by Rome. The people in Jerusalem are so-called Negroes, okay? That's the picture you don't see. You think it's white people on white people. No, these are Negroes in Jerusalem being surrounded by Romans, so-called Caucasians, so-called white men, which are read by what the Bible says they're read, just like these letters I'm reading. Verse 21. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains. The mountains is Africa. And let them which are in the middle of it depart out. And let not them that are in the countries enter therein too. For these be the days of vengeance, that all these things which are written may be fulfilled. So we know the temple was going to be destroyed again, right? And Mashiach Yahushua is telling us that, hey, don't go in there. When you see Jerusalem being compassed with armies, the Roman armies, Titus and his Titus and I believe it's Vespasius and Titus. That's what he was talking about. All right, Salakia. Verse 23. Let's continue on. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land and wrath upon this people, because it was called a battle of Masada, right? And only thing they did, Titus and Vespasius, was they dug a trench around all of Jerusalem, right? And they didn't let nothing come in. They didn't let nothing go out. So the people starved themselves to death. And they were eating children, all the things you hear about in the scriptures. That's right. Verse 24 is the key. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. I don't see the Jewish man or ever heard of the so-called Jewish man being led away into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So who's in the land today? The Gentiles. Who's trodden down the land today? The Gentiles. The so-called Jewish man, whose biblical name is Amalek. And the Lord said he will have war with Amalek and his seed forever. All right, let's get Revelations 2 and 9. Just to let you know, the book of Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. So he said the true Israelites are going to be scattered into all nations. And at the very end, we're going to be recovered from all nations and be placed back in our own land. So that means we're not in our land today. You understand? The so-called people of Negroid and Indian descent who have been scattered through all nations in slavery. And every nation on the planet had a hand in our slavery. They benefited off the labor that we never got paid for, off the blood and sweat and displacement of our people. You're going to have to pay for that. Revelations 2 verse 9. You reap what you sow. Ain't no God love everybody, because God don't love everybody. God love Israel. Revelations 2 and 9. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. Speaking to us, Negro, people of Negroic Indian descent. And I know the blasphemy of them, which say they are Jews. Who call themselves Jews today? What nation of people call themselves Jews? And are not. God said they're not. Hold on. But are the synagogue of Satan. So who's Satan today? I didn't call the so-called white man Satan. Mashaki Habashah, you call Jesus Christ, called him Satan. Because he the one called himself a Jew today. Get Revelation 3, verse 9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews, and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, to know that I have loved thee, because thou hast kept the word of my patience. Meaning we keeping God's commandments. And also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. And that time is now. That's why you see so-called, I can't say it. I heard a brother say MOTB. This one, the chip. They bringing it out. Look in these European nations first. They're already scanning with their hand and their forehead. Look into Esau Edom, the so-called white man. Look into his nation, because that's Satan. It's all going to come out of there and be permeated through all the earth. You can't buy or sell unless you have that. All right. Let's get Isaiah now, chapter 40. The book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 15. Precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. That's Isaiah 28:10. So we go into the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 15. The book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 15. And it reads, Behold, the nations are a drop of a bucket, and are counted as a small dust of the balance. I hope y'all hearing that if you're of another nation and you run across this video, or if you're the nation of Israel and you're trying to take up for the other nations. God said the nations are of a drop of a bucket. And it says, and they are counted as a small dust of the balance. Behold, he taketh up the isles as a very little thing. And Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor the beasts thereof sufficient for a burnt offering. So you can't even burn the whole country of Lebanon, and it will be sufficient or appeasing to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Right? 17. All nations before him are as nothing. They are counted to him less than nothing and vanity. So if you ain't of the nation of Israel who God chose, God said you counted less than nothing. You're like a small dust on a scale. We're going to get another precept in the Apocrypha. Go to 2nd Esdras, chapter 6, verse 50. Let me get there. Go to 2nd Esdras, chapter 6. Let's start at verse 54. And it says, And after these, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all. So we all come from Adam, right? And the people also whom thou hast chosen. Now see that? Because God separated the nations in the beginning. And he made Israel his portion. You people are Negroid and Indian descent. Those who were scattered in slavery. Those on the west coast of Africa. You're God's chosen people. Verse 55. All this I have spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes. Right? Verse 56. As for the other people, as for the other nations, Japanese, Chinese, Indians, East Indians, Arabs, white boy, you know what I'm saying, Caucasians, forgive me, Salakia. It says, as for the other people who also come of Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing. We just read that in Isaiah 40, right? But be like unto spittle, like a little spit fly at your mouth. God said that's what the nations are to him, right? And has likened them to the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. So if you got a big bucket of water and a little drop splash out, God said that's what the other nations are to him. But one Israelite is more than the whole entire nations put together. One. That means myself. I'm more than billions of people scattered on the planet because God loved me and he loved my people. And that's the message that's coming out of this video. Remember who you are. Remember God loved you. And all the nations are against you. That's why you're on the bottom today. In every nation. You're on the bottom. All right, let's get Isaiah 14, verse 1. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 1. But here's what's going to happen to the other nations, okay? So there's, like I said, we're going to get redeemed out of all the other nations. But the Bible says we're going to get redeemed out of all the nations where the Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob scattered us and put us back in our own land. And this is some of the things that's going to happen when we get in our own land. Isaiah 14, verse 1. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob. Did he say the whole world? Did he say Catholic Church, Pentecostal, Presbyterian, Seventh-day Adventist? No, he said on Jacob. And will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land, right? And the strangers, that's the other nations, shall be joined with them and shall cleave unto the house of Jacob. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place. I mean, we're going to take them back to Israel with us like they took us to the Americas with them, right? And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were. And they shall rule over their oppressors. We shall rule over our oppressors. You understand? We're going to rule over our oppressors. We're going to take them back. That's the prophecy. Just like we read in Revelations 3 and 9. They're going to come and worship before our feet. Now I get Revelations 13, verse 10. Revelation, let's start at verse 9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity, who led the so-called black man, Hispanic man, native man into captivity? Who led the West African man into captivity? It says, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. You reap what you sow. You're not going to get away with this. All you nations, you Arabs, all you Chinese, all of y'all guys that were selling us, you're not getting away with it. You're going into captivity when the Mashiach Yahweh, who the world called Jesus Christ, when he come back, your nations are going into captivity. Get ready for slavery. Get Revelations 2:26. Revelations chapter 2, verse 26. And it reads, and he that overcometh and keepeth my works, we know the works according to Exodus 18 and 20, is what? The laws, because a lot of our people will not keep the laws of God. They say the law done away with, we under grace. Read Romans 6. So Revelation chapter 2, verse 26, and he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations. Power over the nations. Power over the nations. This ain't about no sin and sinners like you learned in the church. Christ is coming back to put that sword on nations. And those who keep his commandments of Israel, we're going to rule over the nations for what they did to us and our ancestors. Verse 28, Salakia, verse 27. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron, and a vessel of a potter shall they be broken, and to shivers, even as I receive of my Father. So Mashiach Yahweh, who you call Jesus Christ, going to give the Israelites, you so-called people of Negroid and Indian descent, the same power he has. If we keep the commandments with belief on him, we're going to break the nations. All praises be to the Most High. Let's get Amos 3 and 1. The book of Amos, chapter 3 and verse 1. We're about to wrap it up. Hear this word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel. The whole, Salakia, start from the top. Amos chapter 3, verse 1. Hear this word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up out of the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities. So we're being punished today. We're being shot in the back. We're being last hired, first fired. You understand? We're suffering racism and xenophobia all over the planet. It's us, people of Negroid and Indian descent. Let's get Psalms chapter 147, verse 19. The book of Psalms, chapter 147, verse 19. And these ain't my words. These are words of the Most High God of Jacob. He showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He have not dealt so with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord. You don't know the judgments if you're a white man. You ain't going to slavery. So-called Jewish man, you have yokes of iron on your neck. And the law definitely wasn't given unto you because you don't keep God's commandments. Get Joel chapter 2, verse 27. The book of Joel chapter 2, verse 27. It says, and ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God, and none else. And my people shall never be ashamed. God is the only God of Israel. The white Jesus, aka Caesar Borgia, Satan, that's not our God, but that's what has been given to our people out here in Christianity. Christianity is worse than drugs, man, because it takes our people mind off the law, statutes, and commandments, and it takes our people mind off who they are in this Bible, which are the Israelites. Come out of Christianity and come back to the commandments of God. Come back to the commandments of God and belief on a Mashiach Yahushua. Revelations 14:12. Revelations 12:17. Let's get 1 Kings 10 and 9. I'm about to wrap it up. 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 9. And it reads, blessed be the Lord God, blessed be the Lord thy God, which delighted in thee, to set thee on the throne of Israel. Because the Lord loved Israel forever. That didn't say now, yesterday, that said forever, right? Therefore made he the king to do judgment and justice. Get Psalms 44. It's like it. The book of Psalms 44, verse 11. Psalms 44, verse 11. The book of Psalm 44, verse 11. And it reads, thou hast given us like sheep appointed for meat, and hast scattered us among the heathen. That happened to the so-called Negro, the so-called Hispanic, the people of Negroid and Indian descent. Verse 22, thou sellest thy people for naught, and doest not increase thy wealth by their price. We don't have wealth, not land wealth, not an inheritance. Psalms 44 and 13. Thou makest us a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and a derision to them that are round about us. Verse 14. Thou makest us a byword among the heathen, and a shaking of the head among the people. When people see the so-called Negro man, the first thing they think you are is a drug dealer and a rapper. Somebody out here half naked with women in the video, half naked, shaking their buttocks and their breasts all moving all over the place. Madness. We got to come out of that madness. We got to come back to being royal with our women with their head covered with their dresses on. Just like that wicked one that just perished here a few days ago. You never seen her in no pants. Not that Edomite. She had a dress on. Why do our people, the real true queens and kings, dress and get involved with the LGBTQ, wearing dresses as men and women wearing pants? That's against God's laws according to Deuteronomy 22 and 5. We got to come out of that and come back to God's laws, statutes, and commandments. Now read Psalms 44 verse 5. Let me see, is that it? Yeah. Psalms 44 verse 5, and it reads, through thee will we push down the enemy. Through thy name will we tread under the rise, Salakia, tread them under that rise against us. Got kind of tongue-tied right there. All right, Salakia, last precept, Psalms 47 verse 4. The book of Psalms, chapter 47 verse 4. And it reads, he shall choose our inheritance for us, the excellency of Jacob, whom he loved. The excellency of Jacob, whom he loved. So we know that at the very end of all creation, and at the end of this era that's coming up, of the so-called white man's rule, whose biblical name is Esau, name was changed to Edom, which means red. Blood shall forth through his skin. The sun hates him. When their rule is ending, when a Mashiach Yahushua returns, who's of the tribe of Judah, right? according to Hebrews 7 and 12. He's of the tribe of Judah, which is of the nation of Israel. Then our kingdom will be established in righteousness, not in foolery, not in sorcery, not in slavery and captivity and oppression. We're going to rule you in righteousness. You're going to keep God's laws, statutes, and commandments, these other nations. So my message to you brothers and sisters here in Ghana, man, that hear this show and hear this message, God say we must remember the days of old, according to Deuteronomy 32, right? Verse 7. Remember the days of old. Think upon who you are, man. Remember who your ancestors are, where they came from. Search for the history of your people. Because your history didn't start contrary to 1956 or 55, and in America, 1967. No, your history is well documented in this Bible. This is our history. All the apostles and prophets and teachers of this Bible are so-called black men and black women. You understand? They're not Caucasian. The Caucasians are the ones who are putting us in subjugation and captivity. So I hope this class was edifying today. I'd like to give all honor again to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Shalom, 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 shalom.